Welcome. I am honored and so pleased to be here with you. I am hoping that my intention in providing the material today will be exactly what you need to bump you forward in some way in healing your heart, because that is my journey, healing my heart, which you'll hear about shortly. And so I'm going to begin my presentation and see what else will come to mind to say. This is good. I accomplished this in a few seconds. If any of you have heard recording or seen recordings or seen my excursions into these presentations, you will remember that I've had technological challenges and that I'm able to get there here on this screen so early is a triumph. Doug, would you allow Christy to be a co-host? Or it doesn't really matter, I guess. Having her as a witness is good enough. So, this is a presentation. Welcome to Rise Through the Flames. Use anger as sacred fuel. I do a few reminders while we wait for um, the rest to arrive. Please mute your microphone unless you want to ask a question, and Doug can admit you to be viewed and to be seen, uh, or something like that. Of course, courtesy and respect in the chat and otherwise will be appreciated at all times. And always, can you see this Ember, Doug, that needs to be admitted?
Hold on.
That's okay, I will admit. And questions are welcome at any time. So write them in the chat, and especially if it pertains to the material, Doug will catch it and read it to me so that I attend to it appropriately. Now, this is the official presentation, and I welcome those who are here today, and your presence will help fuel the nature of this presentation. So don't think that you play a small part here, because the energy that you participate participate with and join with me will make this powerful for everyone. My official bio goes something like this. I have had at least 44 years of experience doing psychotherapy, coaching, healing. In 1981, I earned my PhD in clinical psychology. It was occurred while I was doing my postdoc at the Department of Psychiatry at UC Berkeley. And after that, I was hired by the Counseling Center and officially began my work with clients for 44 years. I retired early from UC Berkeley, and after that time, for decades, I took numerous training in healing, in personal development, in spiritual things, practices, read tons of books, etc., etc. And I wrote a book called Listen to the Cries of Your Heart. And that's kind of like my mantra. Listen to the cries of your heart. And this is what you will hear as I present. I want to somehow I appeared again here, and I lost the screen. Okay, my imperfectness is showing up. Can you see the screen? Would you nod your head? Yeah, you still can. Well, guess what? I can't. So let me see what happened.
You are cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. So now am I good?
You're good.
Okay. Thank goodness. By the way, I used to be a perfectionist. I didn't realize I was a perfectionist. Making mistakes was horrifying for me, and I didn't know it. It was an unconscious pattern I had. And I have moved to being good enough and moved to being perfectly imperfect so that these glitches that occur, okay, they happen. It's all is okay. However, it wasn't always that way, and I want to tell you my story. I came from a long line of women who swallowed their anger. My mother didn't know her no. When she was about 14, born and raised in Hawaii, an aunt in Japan didn't have any children. So she was sent to Japan to be the adopted daughter, and lived there and studied to become a seamstress. When she was 17 or 18 and had met the love of her life, she got a call from home that said, "We need you here," because her older sister was getting married, leaving 7 siblings that needed her. So she left her life in Japan. It kind of makes you want to cry. And returned home, never questioning her need to be a good daughter and dutiful. Well, she, in order to do this, she buried her resentment so deeply it turned into depression. Now, this picture on the left is a depiction of me at 2 or 3. The expression is of a pouter, or in Japanese, habutembo. My grandmother, I overheard say to my mother, "She's a habutembo." I got the message. You're not supposed to show your feelings that way. Because in my tradition, you are a stoic. You act as if everything is fine, no matter what is happening underneath. Then there was my father, quiet and a stoic as well. But he was angry. And I know his story, but it's not that important except to share with you my 3 experiences of anger, where he took some object and threw it outside the front door, an India ink bottle that I had spilled with the ink, indelible ink, onto the rug, which he warned me about. He picked up that bottle and threw it across the room. Now, what did I do? I just looked, I just witnessed because I had buried my anger. I was stunned and I disappeared inside, just like my mother. So I learned early on that anger was dangerous. For example, in intermediate school, I was offered the opportunity to be advanced a grade in the middle of the year. I didn't want to leave my friends. So for the first time in my life, I asked my parents, please don't do this. Don't allow me to do this. And being Japanese and caring about education, they said, no, you need to do this. I didn't realize how angry I was because it was buried. But that's the first moment I recognized, tracing my history, that I became unconscious. I went underground. So I lived for decades, only half conscious. I barely made it through high school and college and the years after that because there wasn't enough of me there. In fact, that happened through most of my adult life. I stopped asking for what I wanted. I learned to be a good girl, a good student, a good professional. In the 6th year of my marriage, all done in this half conscious state, my husband told me that he wanted an open marriage, meant permission to sleep around. I was furious. The first time I felt angry, but only for 24 hours because he talked me out of it. And when I felt I had lost, I went underground even more. All the while, operating on the outside, getting my PhD and so forth, working as I described, I didn't know I was brokenhearted. However, 10 years ago, I heard a voice. I was sitting to write a chapter in the book, pen and pad in hand. And the words were, listen to the cries of my heart, your heart. Listen to the cries of your heart. So I began to write. And that began my personal journey of healing my heart. I kind of followed my intuition that gave me the phrase. And that chapter became a book, and I began my work of inner child healing. Then 5 years ago, intuition nudged me again, and I became a MAP, Make Anything Possible practitioner, which introduced me to a system that engages your subconscious as a healer of the deep wounds of childhood. It empowered me to do my personal work and empowered me to do the work with clients. As a result of this, I no longer play small. I no longer silence my heart. I rise, I teach, and I guide others to do the same. So, say yes in the chat if you know what it's like to hide a broken heart. We're getting a number of yeses. Thank you.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Say yes in the chat if you know how to look good on the outside, pretend, or even kind of unconsciously believe you're okay, but have a quiet sense that all is not well. Yes in the chat if you know that. Lovely. Thank you for responding. I appreciate that my story resonates with you. So, there was one more question I wanted to ask about this. And I guess the next question is, will you open your heart? Be curious. And especially to be attuned to what is it that I need to hear? Are you open to listening to what this presentation is meant to convey to you? Thank you for your responses. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I hope so.
Thank you. So, the structure, the three sections of this uh, time I have with you will cover first, your childhood and anger. I only discovered what my childhood did and in turn and how I dealt with anger in doing my healing journey. I'm going to provide you with an opportunity, if you haven't had right before this, to check in on your childhood and see how it affected your stance with anger. That's part one. Part two, I will talk about how anger is a powerful portal to your heart. And that's why I chose anger as the beginning, possibly, of the healing of your heart. Part two. Part three is, so what are the answers? How do you hold your, heal your heart? How do you return to a wisdom that you've looked for, wished you had, a wholeness that you don't quite feel? And hopefully, for some of you, you'll understand what I mean, that it will bring you to oneness, where you experience yourself more and more, not separate from, but part of the whole. That's the structure. The spirit of it, there'll be a teaching part where I will teach and share information to show you where you are and how you are. I call this using your awareness to shine the light of your situation. And the light is such that you can choose to say, I see it, and then you can forget about it. But I'm hoping that when you use the awareness in today, you will see things that you would say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, huh, maybe I can do something about it, and so forth. In this process, I want you to notice your resistance. Notice when you kind of blank out, you're not hearing me or participating in the self-reflective exercise. Because in the process of healing, as you may know, the parts of you who want you to survive resist change. The reason why all of us are here is because we have these pieces of resistance that are afraid of change. Otherwise, anything that suggested a key, a path, you would have done it and you would not be here. There are resistances, so notice. And when you notice, you can shift back to being conscious. So that's the second point. And the third point, there were at least three self-reflective exercises in each of these parts. I want you to participate wholeheartedly in them. They're not long, but you're asked to look at your experiences. And by doing that, you're no longer listening to me. You are engaging in your life. You're involving yourself in the experience of this. So please do that. It will gift to you and all. All right. So the first self-reflective piece. How does the energy of anger feel to you? How does it feel in your body? How does it feel in your heart? And or what is your experience of someone being angry at you? However you want to, whichever one you want to do, focus on anger so you get in touch with feeling, experiencing the energy of anger. So I will give you a minute.
Diane said, when people are angry with me, I get very anxious and sometimes cry. RV Bohr, I'm not sure who that is. I don't want to be angry. Lately, everyone makes me angry for the slightest thing. I don't care if someone is angry with me. I said I want to retreat, hide, or struggle to fix the situation. Jody says it feels powerful, right, good, normal, but it also hurts.
Hmm.
Jenna said, I feel very sad and overwhelmed when angry. And when people are angry with me, I can easily shut down or try to overly fix it. Very similar to my response. Kayera said, I usually feel anger in my chest and my arms, but it feels like this really big ball of energy and fire and rage, like a tornado inside me, in my heart. It feels like a sting, maybe kind of bad. Renee says, I used to be a very angry person when I was younger. I ended up going to therapy for it, and it has helped a lot. When people are angry at me, it hurts me, and I try to fix the situation.
Yes, I appreciate.
Lorraine
Mhm.
says, I feel anger scary. I can only recall 2 times I got angry. I actually found it empowering at the time. It feels heavy to me, like it's stuck, stuffed down. Renisha says, feels like jet fuel is being fueled inside me and I'm ready to take off. But I tend to find ways to calm myself by knowing hate does not live in my heart.
Mm.
Cynthia, anger feelings deregulating, explosive, and I need to run or cry. When people are angry at me, I feel like I have to be grounded or I have to help them regulate. Susie says, my anger feels heavy, intense, uncontrollable, a deep disgust, sadness, and disappointment. I lash out. Christy says, when I'm angry, I don't often share it with others if it feels pointless. When others are angry with me, it's usually easy to diffuse unless they are really angry, and then it's flee or fight.
I appreciate all of these comments. You've touched on so much, so many parts of what I'm going to say next. So thank you for sharing what you have
And
shared.
and Chris added, my heart races and my ears burn. It feels like not having control over myself or my environment, and it's embarrassing.
Uh, Thank you. So, what is anger? I need to minimize the screen. There we go. All these comments suggest that at one time or another, or always, anger is bad, or anger is dangerous, or anger is shameful. Many of you attested to the energy that anger has. You experience it in your body, you experience it emotionally. What I can bet is that when you were young, growing up, when you were 1, 2, 3, and anger was in your family, you weren't prepared. It hurt. It was scary. You wanted to run away, or you wanted to become invisible. Say yes in the chat. If you find that as an adult, or looking back in your life, you buried, suppress, repress, deny, avoid, or dismiss anger. Any of those. Can you own up to doing any of those things?
There's a host of yeses.
Yes. And for those of us like I, who learned to suppress and repress, suppression being an unconscious mechanism, which I use, and repress is consciously burying it. And there's the conscious, you see it and you go, I don't want to be here. You avoid it, deny. All of this is to create do not disturb on your for around your heart, which is an important point that I will be getting back to. So, some of the things that you have mentioned, your reaction to anger, a kind of numbing, I know that, or a deep, low sadness that doesn't move. Someone mentioned crying or feeling sad. Then there is self-blame or harsh inner critic. This is when the anger of energy is there, but you can't let it out. And because the young child had only her in her world, she decided she was to blame for whatever happened that caused her pain or caused whatever the situation is in her family. With the ink bottle and my dad, I certainly was the cause. I was the one who spilled the ink. Um, and it occurs to me only now, is that when the self-blame and that perspective really colored my life, that no matter what went wrong, I was to blame. So the energy of anger, when it's not processed, handled correctly, can turn up as a harsh critic. And there are those who mention admitting to wanting to fix things so that everyone would not be in conflict or could feel at peace. Or there's a sense of retreating from people, from the situation. So you walk away physically or emotionally. And in some ways, this is what can happen in childhood wounds. When things become so painful, you decide, I don't want to participate in this life. It is too painful. It's part of the anger, and you retreat. And since that action was taken very early on, you're in a place of where you are as an adult, not realizing how you feel somewhat disconnected. So, this is some of the explanation of your reactions to anger. I love this about Thich Nhat Hanh, this quotation. When you are angry and you act on it, you hurt people, just like people have hurt you. When you are angry and you listen to it, you heal yourself. And that is the point of what we're going to, this next segment of the presentation is part 2. Anger as a portal to the inner child and defended heart. Okay, here's the next self-reflection piece. Think of a time you felt angry today, this week, and then go to your heart and say, if anger was a no from my heart, what did your heart need instead in that moment? So again, a minute to self-reflect on an angry moment and listening to the message of no from your heart. So, are we getting
There's a number of responses.
good?
Harvey Moore said alone time. Lorraine said being seen and heard instead of discounted again. Renee
Beautiful.
said anger happened yesterday and all I needed was for someone to listen to me.
Yay.
Christy said I need my time and space to be respected instead of constant demands with no reciprocity. Susie said to be told I'm loved.
Mm,
Robin said lonely time with nature. Kaira said love and reassurance.
yes.
Cynthia, I need to feel warmth, love, and space to process my anger.
Yes. Good. Thank you.
Ronisha, to be left alone.
Yes. I appreciate what you have shared. Okay, you all have, to the degree, found a message about your anger of what your heart needed instead of what you were faced with, whether it was someone or a situation. For example, in this crazy, insane world that we live in today, if you get a glimpse of the insanity of it, and if you have any response that you can feel, the anger at it, it might be the message, I need to feel safe, and this world doesn't make me feel safe. Or I need to feel I'm not alone in dealing with this, because feeling alone, it feels very lonely and very scary. I don't feel connected. Any of these messages can come when you find the anger that arises, your needs that are not being met, needs for safety, love, respect that each of you have admitted to express. So, just to summarize, the heart holds a very different kind of intelligence compared to our intellect. It knows how to pause, to feel, to sense what's true, not just what's safe. And the heart connects us to love, to spirit, to the part of us that is eternal and whole. I love Talhat Dushadan's quotation about how we're spiritual beings having a human experience rather than a human being having a spiritual experience. When I hear that, I remember, okay, I have been caught up in my humanness. And if I can just for a moment realize that I need to pay attention to that for sure, but I have the strength that I am spirit. All right. For those who admitted to explosive experiences of anger from others or yourself, who suppress, repress, deny, avoid, I am going through at least 9 subtle signs of anger. So as I do that, say yes in the chat if you experience any of this, because they're subtle, but they're still anger, and they still are a no from the heart. So, irritation, the small, sharp edge inside you. For example, you snap at your partner for leaving dishes in the sink, even though it feels minor. 2, frustration, feeling blocked or stuck, wanting something to change, but it doesn't. For example, you keep telling your coworker the same thing, but they don't listen. You feel tension in your shoulders. How about children? Feeling frustrated when you keep telling them the same thing. Disappointment, a letdown that masks unspoken anger. A friend cancels plans at the last minute again. You feel hurt, but say, it's fine. Say yes in the chat if any of this is something you can see. Resentment, unspoken anger that builds up over time. For example, you do more chores than your roommate. You never say anything, but inside you feel heavy and bitter. 5, jealousy, a sign that you feel left out, unseen, or not valued. For example, a coworker gets praise for an idea you had. You feel the anger as tightness in your chest. Blame, a way anger tries to find a target. You blame your partner for making you late when you didn't set your alarm. I notice myself. Whenever things aren't right, I think, I blame. I blame myself or I blame whoever's the nearest target. It's my anger that is there. And if I were to sit with the anger and say, well, what is the message? What did I need instead? I'd be further along. Sarcasm, a hidden jab that carries anger's bite. For example, you might say, well, that was smart when someone makes a mistake. I don't know how to be sarcastic. I haven't done this one well. Withdrawal or cold silence, pushing anger down by shutting others out. For example, you just stop talking to your friend after they hurt you, but you never talk about it with them. You just stop. Here's a good one, chronic complaining, repeating the same story instead of naming the anger underneath. You always talk about how unfair your boss is, but you never set boundaries, etc. I had an example of this in the last couple of weeks where I kept repeating the same story over and over again. And I finally got that I was angry and what was behind that anger. And since then, I could let it go. It was a discovery of what my heart needed instead of what I was witnessing. All right.
Well,
Before we go on to
we
part
have a
2,
number of yeses.
good. Tell me.
People recognizing many of these techniques.
Signs.
Signs, many of these signs of subtle anger.
Yeah. Are you say yes in the chat if you're kind of surprised of seeing this list as expressions of anger that you didn't even consider? For example, blaming and complaining. Did you ever think that that was your anger speaking? I'm not seeing any responses.
Uh,
Are we getting responses?
yes.
Okay.
Christy says, never considered that. Chris says, sarcasm is life. Rarely think of it as anger. Disappointment makes sense, but I didn't really think about anger, more sadness. Renee says, never thought of the subtle signs of anger. Diane says, yes, I recognize these as anger responses.
Cool. Good. Thank you. All right. We're now going to look, we've got a lot to do. Anger as a portal to the inner child and the defended heart. So now, ready? What we did was the easy, kind of relaxing piece. This is going to be intense because I am going to talk about the inner child, the trigger, beliefs, and patterns. So those of you who are familiar with the inner child will get possibly more uh, insight into how the inner child works. And we'll talk about healing the inner child through the subconscious. So here we go. I want you to introduce the whole topic about the inner child. The inner child are trauma parts that were created when you were hurt early in childhood, maybe even in the womb, when your needs for nurturance, um, being comforted, being wet, being attended to, feeling safe, all of that. When you were hurt, trauma parts were created and they now live in you, these trauma parts. And they show up in triggers of anger, fear, and sadness. Anger, for me, being the loudest. The inner child shows up in beliefs, which are the impressions without words that the inner child no, that came when they felt hurt. The impressions are, well, I'll go through them so we can see what they are. But an example is, I must be to blame for what happened here. And then patterns. So many patterns to survive. And the important point is this. These beliefs and these patterns, they write the script that run your adult life right now, that run my adult life until I neutralize, heal them, and heal the wound and the pain. And then we'll talk about that further on. But pay attention. Okay. So you can ignore the triggers and allow the inner child's reactions, beliefs, and patterns to create your adult life. But remember, you always have the choice. If you see that you are mostly surviving, you can choose to heal, and I'll show you how I healed. Okay, just a reminder. All right, we are going through beliefs. of the inner child, the impressions of self and the world. Once again, if you see that this is an impression that you have or have had, please say yes in the chat. First one, I'm not good enough. The child learns this when love feels conditional, only given when they perform, achieve, or behave right. As an adult, you overachieve, you exhaust yourself trying to prove your worth, or you feel you never quite measure up because the impression is, I'm not good enough. Any yes in the chat? Yes?
Oh, yes, there's yeses in the chat.
Good, thank you. Second, it's my fault. Children naturally blame themselves when things go wrong, especially in emotionally unstable homes. As an adult, you take responsibility for others' feelings, apologize for everything, or feel guilty for saying no. You become the fixer, which we'll talk about next. But you take responsibility because it's your fault. Yes, it's
Ronisha says, I usually say it's my fault. A lot of times it is, but I think sometimes I say it even when that may not be true.
okay. Thank you.
Renee says, absolutely.
All right. Number 3, I have to be good to be loved. Love gets tied to obedience. Emotions like anger, sadness are punished or ignored. This is often happens when you are sensitive or you're emotional, and that is too disturbing for your parents. So you get told, you're too sensitive. Keep your feelings to yourself. So you pay attention, you become obedient, you people please, you suppress your true feelings, and you fear being seen as too much. How many of you know this?
Christy says number 3 is not for love, but survival. Number 4 is yes. Diane says, so far, all of these. We have other yeses to that as well.
Thank you. So, number 4, my needs don't matter. When a child's need early enough were ignored, shamed, neglected, they learn to disconnect from themselves. They do to themselves what was done to them. So, as an adult, you focus on taking care of others and struggle to name or meet your own needs. Service providers, coaches, healers, teachers, nurses, doctors, etc., whose job it is to pay attention to the needs of who was before them.
How about just mothers?
Very good. That too. Thank you. So this is it. You have your world invaded by the needs of others, especially because yours were ignored and shamed, and you can't help yourself. This is how you're put together. I recognize I didn't realize this until I did this work, that I know people's needs before they know, and I'm aware of them. So, uh, anyway, you might recognize more and more that you are attentive to other people's needs and you're ignoring your own. 5, big emotions, joy, anger, grief. I spoke about this, get labeled as dramatic, selfish, or inconvenient. So, as an adult, you tone yourself down, you become less visible, You're afraid of expressing strong emotion, and you hide parts of who you are. This is part of the pretender syndrome. You pretend to be something that you imagine would make you more acceptable because how you really feel is troublesome to others. 6, I'm alone. When emotional support is absent, the child learns that no one is coming. As an adult, you struggle to ask for help. You carry the world on your shoulders. After all, you're responsible. And you know you feel safest alone because you don't trust. No one was there. It broke your heart and you trust. How many admit that deep inside you feel, I'm alone?
Chris says, I'm unwilling to take up space in the world. Diane says she's always feels like she's too much.
Oh, thank you. These are,
AW says, I came last in life when it comes to care. Susie
yes,
says, being told I'm too sensitive, definitely.
yes, thank
Susie
you.
says, I can't trust anyone and I'm safer alone.
And there it is on the screen. Further other beliefs, impressions. I have to earn love. Anger is bad. I'm not safe. The world is an unfriendly place to be. This is what many, many trauma parts carry. After all, no one was there for him. There was no welcoming. The world is not a friendly place. And if you carry that belief with you, guess what? Everything unfriendly and hostile in the world will show up in your life. And we'll talk about this shortly. Now, these are the patterns. Put a yes in the chat if a pattern applies to you. 1, people pleaser. Always say yes, avoids conflicts at all costs, seeks approval to feel safe. For example, you take on extra work, can't say no when your principal says, can you do this? You agree to things you don't want to do in your family. You silence your own needs. The limitations are your boundaries are blurry or missing. Your resentment builds, and you're exhausted and unseen. This is what people who don't realize that's the cost of being a people pleaser, that's the cost. You're exhausted and you're not visible. Any yes in the chat for being a people pleaser?
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Okay,
Only sometimes.
good.
AW says both 1 and 2.
Okay, so the overachiever. Most of you are probably overachievers. You want to prove your worth by constantly doing, probably constantly have to find success because nothing feels enough. You might have many promotion, awards, and all of that, but inside, successful as you seem to be, you still carry the good enough, not good enough, because the wound is about filling the hole in your heart. The limitations of the overachiever, you sacrifice joy and rest for more doing. Burnout and emptiness follow. 3, the perfectionist. Believes mistakes mean rejection or failure, to be avoided at all costs. So you try to control every detail. The perfectionist knows how important it is to control. So you spend hours rewriting an email or replaying conversations on how you could have done it better. The limitation? Creativity dies. Nothing ever feels done. And the inner voice of criticism never gives you any peace. The lone wolf does everything alone because you don't trust anyone to help. You feel safer relying on you, even when you're overwhelmed. And exhaustion feeds, is fed by isolation. And isolation means that you don't collaborate, you don't connect. So you provide patterns that make you feel alone. Any yeses to 3 and 4?
Yes. Uh, Very much a perfectionist. No to 3, yes to 4, but doing better. Perfectionist, lone wolf from uh, Ronisha, and Mike says a lone wolf. Yes to both, Jody says. AW, there are people that don't replay conversations ahead and trust other people. Jealous. Yes, I rely on myself from Susie.
Thank you. 5 and 6, the chameleon. You become who others want you to be. You lose touch with your authentic self. So, for example, you speak, dress, or act, depending on who you're going to be with. The limitation is this keeps you being invisible, and the real you is buried under masks. Consider how many masks you wear. 6, the peacekeeper avoids conflict to feel secure, swallows anger and hard truth. So you say you're fine when it's not, and you can feel resentful or powerless. Limitation, unspoken truth festers, boundaries dissolve, the heart's no goes unheard. Anyone saying yes to 5 and/or 6?
Yeah, Diane says the chameleon is me pretty much.
Mm,
Chris says I'm a hard 6. Christine,
mm.
no to 5, rarely to 6. Ronisha says both. Jody says more of 5. Diane says often a peacekeeper too. AW admits to being a 5 being applicable.
Okay, I'm going to move on. 7 is the fixer, feels responsible for everyone's problems, needs to make things better to feel valuable. So the value is your fixing others. And you jump in even when you're not asked. The limitation, you're not paying attention to your own needs. And you attract people who drain your energies. In some ways, the fixer is a perfect target for any narcissistic, self-centered person. Do you know that? Number 8, the escapist, numbing. You avoid feelings through distraction because you can't sit with discomfort. So you scroll endlessly on your phone, on the computer, or you overeat, or you binge TV. The point is to keep yourself distracted and so busy you can't feel. So the old wounds stay hidden, but they run the show. You can't heal when you're in denial. Any yeses or recognition of being
Yes.
fixer, the escape.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm going to move ahead. The critic. This is where the anger has so much energy, it turns into self-blame, the inner critic. So you shame yourself for mistakes, you replay regrets, you can't forgive yourself. Self-compassion is totally absent, and you stay trapped in guilt and smallness. 10, the stone wall. You shut down all feelings to stay strong. When you're numb, you feel safe. You see, I don't feel angry, and your body is tense. Your energy is stuck. And this is where you feel depressed. Life feels heavy, flat. Your emotional energy is stuck. So you may have felt this way, hopefully not now, maybe sometimes. So do we have any admissions to 9 and 10?
Yes. Yes to both.
Thank you. This is now, put in the chat the number in now patterns you recognize, just a rough number. And then say yes in the chat if you see the need to dissolve one or any of these patterns that you saw articulated because you can see what costs, the price you pay for them. So we're getting numbers.
Yes. 3+ from Kaira. All of them, but done work to lessen several. Christy says lost count, but yes, to dissolve. Jody says 6 to 7. Diane, probably 4 of them. And she says definitely need to control these better. Chris says too many. AW 7, definitely need more peace. Susie says 8, I do, but they feel like a safety mechanism and so locked in.
Okay,
Mike says the majority.
okay, thank you. I want to address the notion of what to do about these patterns, which will be take the rest of the time here. These patterns once protected you. They helped you survive. You're familiar with them. They have kept you safe. And you may not have realized how much they cost you in terms of your joy, your anger, your creativity, and your connection to your intuition and spirit. And wholeness, so that the walls you built for protection now keep you from your heart. Remember, I'm all about healing your heart. And I see these trauma parts as creating a wall around your heart because your broken heart has so much pain. And the child part is saying, we're not going to ever experience that pain again. So we'll do everything to survive. And their intention is not for you to thrive. So if you want to thrive, you need a powerful way to dissolve the walls, these patterns, these beliefs, so you have access to the wisdom of your heart. And this is what we address next. Returning to wisdom, wholeness, and oneness. This is the inner child work. There are many ways to heal the inner child. All of you probably have been on YouTube, on internet, have been presented podcasts, has read books, journaled, meditated, etc., and have perhaps felt some healing of your inner child. But if you're here, you realize that that may have done some of the work, but you still feel there's still more work to do. What's the secret? Well, the secret is this picture that is showing the conscious mind above the water and the subconscious mind. What you can do consciously has only 5% of power because the subconscious holds so much. You need to access the subconscious. And the the process I use called MAP trains your subconscious so it becomes the superconscious. Okay. This, in some ways, is a point that just kind of stuns me back to why I do the work that I do. The subconscious creates your reality. Everything you have in your life today comes from your subconscious. It's powerful. It's responsible for 95% of your daily thoughts, your habits, your emotional responses. Can you take that in? 95% is in the subconscious. So if you don't have access to the subconscious, you have your feet and your hands tied, so you can't thrive. This is what the subconscious contains. All the core beliefs that you run by, all of your emotional memories, all the protective patterns we went through, the pains, the wounds, the trauma of your inner child, all the automatic behaviors, all the things you do without thinking, like driving, and you forget that you're driving. The subconscious is driving. All your nervous system responses, whether it's toward calm or alert. So your fight, flight, freeze response just automatically come online and you dissociate, you leave your body because alarm has been set. So this cartoon at the left, we have met the enemy and he is us, in the sense that the enemy is our subconscious, and we need to access the subconscious if we are to be free. More in the subconscious that we won't even talk about are all the symbolism that makes sense to you, the archetypes that maybe you don't even know about, some soul truths that you may be in touch with, but you need to have something to help you remember. So I want to introduce to you a system that I mentioned called MAP, Make Anything Possible. MAP is a system that trains your subconscious that we all have untrained with all this 95% influence on what we create every day. We train the subconscious to become a healer so it can neutralize and release the pain of the childhood wounds and the results, which are the impressions, the limiting beliefs that you went through, and many more, and the patterns. Unless you get to the source, the trauma, the pain, and how the trauma parts carry the patterns and beliefs, you can only do so much on the conscious level to change. And it takes a long time to get that affirmation, that new perspective. Be more positive, be more positive. It takes a lot because you are working against that 95% weight of the subconscious. But imagine if you had the subconscious, what we, after training, call the superconscious, which is connecting to the divine part of you on your side. Now, just briefly, I want to share what, after one MAP session, this work colleague said, that it was life-changing. She felt that she could bring up all her fears and had light bulb moments that shifted her deeply. She told me of her history of trauma and loss as an adult, and including her childhood. that I never knew about because she was a well-functioning professional. But she brought it up in this one session, and the superconscious was able to heal all the memories connected, all the pain, the beliefs that created the shifts. And she endorses this. So thank you, Tracy. What this presentation was all about is showing you the beliefs and patterns that I can present to you now. But in the course of healing your heart, you're always a work in progress. Are you willing to admit that you are a work in progress? I am, because every day it seems to me a client or something my um, experience shows me, there's something bothering me here. I am triggered. And I sit with it when I can to discover what inner child is there so I can ask superconscious, please treat the pain, the patterns, the beliefs of this trauma part so that I can be more whole. Sandra, you just came in. We're toward the end of this presentation. Welcome. In a couple of hours, I will load this up to YouTube and share with everyone who registered this presentation. But hang on and let's join us for the rest of this. So the point here is there is much work to be done, and hopefully you've seen enough to bring up your courage and your commitment to dig deep, do more, and be your true self. Here are a number of inspiration quotes that I have, wisdom quotes. The last one is something I want to start with. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Remember that wall around the heart to protect the heart from never feeling hurt again are created by trauma parts that need to be healed. And when you can do that, you're in your undefended heart, which is what comes from Jack Cornfield. The goal is not to harden our hearts, to keep them open, undefended, so that you're alive to love, no matter what is painful out there. And this lovely thing from Saint Superi, it is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. So many vote for the healing of the heart. This is one of my students who finished the 10-month course. I think it was 10 months. In any case, she speaks about working with the inner child. She also speaks about beginning to feel she deserved to have space and have better boundaries. She was in a very unsatisfying marriage for 23 years and finally said, no more. I deserve my space. I deserve something better. So she can say this, I feel more like the tall redwood I sit under, grounded, connected to the God of my heart, and feel free to let my soul speak. Thank you, Jeannie. I have time to do a short inner child process, which I describe in my book. So say quickly yes if you'd like to do this. It will take about 2 minutes. Are we getting yeses?
Yes.
Okay, here it is. Close your eyes, please, and begin to focus on your breathing. Feel the air that is your breath in your body. Because when you focus on your breath this way, you're present. And it allows the next breath to become deeper. And you'll notice that your abdomen expands even more on inhalation. Keep focusing on that breath so that each breath is deeper, which invites relaxation into the body so you can feel your muscles softening. And allow that relaxation to also affect your thinking mind. So it goes off of active and off of alert to relax, to allow the capacities for imagining, for being intuitive, and to be inspired as we move into the sacred space of imagination. Imagination as a field of all possibilities, where you can create, where you go to create. For me, this feels like the night sky, undefined stars, but a black field. Into this imaginal space, I want you to invite an inner child that you have touched upon in the course of this presentation. So you're kind of familiar, or if not that, name a number from 1 to 3 or 4, and that will be the age of the inner child you will meet. So in your imaginal space, begin to see this inner child. And if you remember what you look like or the inner child that came to you, begin to see her or him more and more. What was being worn? What was on the feet? What was the expression? What is the expression of this child? As you make yourself visible, softly and gently approaching, because you're going to be with this inner child. And if you can't see any of this, pretend that you do. That's what imagination is. You pretend and you create it. If it doesn't feel like it's supposed to, it's okay. So as you're making yourself approachable, as you approach your inner child, try to be as present and as compassionate as you can, and be with this inner child. Notice how they respond to you when they become aware of your presence. Begin to build a connection. You might mention, describe who you are. You are the adult version of them. And you've come here because you know they've felt alone. And you want to change that, to be with them. And you want them to know that you perhaps can see what they've been experiencing, their emotions, their pain, or perhaps you can feel what is painful and difficult in their heart. Let them know in this conversation that they are not to blame. None of this is their fault. You are also there because they believe that they were alone. And you're here to let them know that you are there with them, no longer alone, so they can let go of that. And maybe remember that they never were alone, but the pain was so strong, the fear so strong, that they lost connection to the unconditional love and eternal presence that was there. But now you are there to represent that or to help them remember. So I'll be quiet for about a minute more or less. All right, I'm going to have to stop the process. So gradually, before you move back, say to your inner child, call me when you need me, and I'll be back. And you can use this script or recording to return to your inner child. See yourself fading away from that experience. Breathe deeply, and when you're ready, open your eyes. So deep, so few words to describe your experience. And Doug, would you repeat some of that for me? Nothing?
Sandra said she would like to see the YouTube video, most definitely. Thank you. Tara said comfort. Christy says, I love this exercise. It really comes in handy. Peace, Trish said. Cynthia said this was such a peaceful experience, calming.
Beautiful. Thank you. And maybe you can repeat more, but I'm going to, we're at the end of the promise end of presentation, but please indulge me. I'm going to take 5 minutes more. Now, I mentioned resistance at the very beginning. This is all about change. Change that you haven't known how to make, change that you may have resisted. And here, the invitation to heal your inner child runs into some of the patterns that will stop you from investing in inner child healing. Remember the pattern of super self-reliance. I'm doing this alone. I don't need anyone's help. I can do this myself. I've got the beliefs, I got the patterns, and I can get them in the replay and so forth. And I can use this and I can do it myself. Let me tell you that working with a mentor, a guide, a teacher, and in a group where you get stimulated by what others people share and begin to see more of what in your world you only have your lens. So if you let go a little bit of self-reliance to engage in this process with me, you will find a lot more power and depth. So the resistance can come from super self-reliance and the lack of trust that is in, as we discussed, in others, in all authority, because all authority have failed you because you tried so much and you failed. So you have this belief, I can try so many things but I'm going to fail because that's what happened when I came into this life. I wanted and needed things, but I didn't get them. So we need to heal all this. And when you came into this life, you certainly knew what scarcity was. And you have to find a way to heal that belief in scarcity. And finally, are you worthy or deserving to invest in yourself to do more? Is what I am proposing. Say yes in the chat if you'd like to change how you handle your anger. Are we getting some yeses?
Yes, Jody, Ronisha,
Good,
Lorraine, Cynthia, Kaira,
good. Thank you.
Chris, AW.
Thank you. Um, AW, would you let us know what your name is so that we can identify you in terms of getting in touch with you and know that you participated? Say yes in the chat. If you can see how letting go of inner child beliefs and patterns will free you, I hope to see a lot of yeses there.
Yes, there's a number of yeses appearing.
Good. And finally, would you like to know your inner wisdom? Would you like to live from your inner wisdom? Please say yes in the chat. In addition to that, if you're open to share what's in your heart right now, or any commitments you've made, or any insights you've gained, and you can share this with me as we're moving into the last minute of our time together.
Kaira says, where does hot-headedness stem from? Lorraine says how powerful the subconscious is. Chris says, I think anger has influenced my state of being more than I realize. I appreciate
Wonderful.
the insight.
Wonderful.
Jody says, I'm surprised that the patterns I have taken as normal and protective are preventing me from healing.
Yay. Thank you.
I had included a link for a clarity call with you. I'm going to repeat that.
Yeah. So I invite all of you, whether you see this in person or on a recording, I have opened up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for clarity breakthrough calls where you will have 45 minutes to discuss any of these issues, discuss anything that I said, so that you can get clarity about what it would take you to break through being stuck um, in your journey to wholeness, being more, feeling freer, living out of your true self, etc. So book a call. I look forward to getting to know you and having the opportunity to discuss how what I presented today can motivate you, provide you what you need to heal your heart. That's what it's all about. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to stop the screen share and stop the recording.